Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the second episode of my series Junk Journal from start to finish. If you have not seen the first part of this video tutorial yet, where we were making the covers and the pockets for the inside covers of these two journals, I will link it down below for you. And today we are going to be focusing on the pages. So we are going to be choosing pages for our signatures, and I will also show you sort of some basic embellishments, some basic things that you can do to embellish your pages. And before we start, I also wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who have commented on my previous video on the first part of this tutorial. I am so happy it's useful for you and that you found it inspiring in any way or helpful in any way. Also, if you ever have any questions on the junk journal process, don't hesitate to reach out to me and ask. I will be happy to help you. So back to today's video. So you can see me flipping through some book pages. So I have a sort of, I would call it a formula maybe, for choosing pages for my signatures. I have some groups of papers that I always choose my papers from. So the first group, as you can see here, are book pages, and we are doing a floral junk journal here, so I've only chosen some floral book pages with beautiful illustrations. But obviously if I do an astronomy book, I will choose some astronomy book pages. Also, I often choose dictionary pages, encyclopedia pages, as they look really nice in a journal. Here I'm doing just one signature in each journal, so I did not kind of want it to be too bulky, so that's why I'm not choosing any like additional papers like dictionary or just all text pages, but book pages is what I always choose from. And the second group, as you can see, is blank papers. So I have notebooks, I have paper pads, I have craft paper, recycled paper, I have blank pages that I tea stained or coffee stained, so I always choose from these. And I'm always on a lookout whenever I am in a stationery store or anything. I'm always on the lookout for notebooks with cool papers that I can repurpose and use in my journals. So like this lined paper, I really like the color. It's a cream color, very nice, and I think that just it's nice to have lines to write on. And also the to-do list, the kind of violet colored paper I chose in the beginning of this group, that you could see, it's also a fun addition to a journal. So here I have some fabric stained papers, and I use my fabric dye the same way as I use tea stain. So I just choose or buy basically the cheapest fabric dye out there. I mix it with hot water and I soak my papers in this mixture for a little while, and then I let them air dry through the night, and it gives really cool effects and beautiful colors. So the next group, I always choose pages for my signatures from scraps, and you can see my humongous box of scraps here. I have everything here. I have scraps of blank pages, of patterned papers, of music pages, of book pages. I mean, it's everything in there. And it's also fun when I just look how I flip through these scraps. Like I see how they layer, and each layer represents a certain project I was working on. It's just fun. But I think I have a problem with scraps. I mean, I save all of the scraps, and even the tiniest ones. I always try to save them and reuse them, but then my box of scraps keeps growing, and I just keep forgetting to use up my scraps. So yeah, definitely when I'm making a journal, I will always go through this box and choose some scraps of pattern paper or some scraps of book pages to either add to my journal as pages or to add some kind of embellishing with scraps of pattern paper, for example. So I'm going through the whole box for the second time, as you can see, and I'm just choosing some stuff that I thought would, color match with what I was doing, with some book pages from nature books, etc. So yeah, that's the third group that I always choose my papers from. And the last group that I always try to add to my journals is vintage papers. I really admire those, junk journal creators who have like heaps of vintage ephemera and authentic vintage papers in their journals. And I have a difficulty with acquiring vintage papers, but I do have this ledger book with plain vintage papers and some very, very old sheet music books. So I choose papers from this. I also sometimes add some vintage notebook papers, something like that. Just something vintage to make the journal more authentic and more special, I guess. So now I'm just dividing all of these papers into two piles, and I'm going to be just folding them up, as you will see in a moment. So here I'm slowly just showing you what I do. So I have this paper scrap. I know that the width of my papers should not be more than 11 centimeters, so I'm just measuring it here, and I will be doing a lot of fold outs as well, as you will see here with this scrap that I'm folding right now. So whenever I am making a journal which is this narrower size, like the one I'm making right now, so the width of my pages is 11 centimeters, I like to add a lot of fold outs and flip outs and all that interactive kind of thing, because it adds a lot of additional journaling space without having to add actual pages into your signatures and bulk up your journal too much. So now I've sped this part up quite a lot, but basically you can see what I'm doing. I'm just folding my papers. I'm making sure they are not wider than 11 centimeters and they are not taller than 21 centimeters. These are the measurements of my journal. And don't worry, even if some of your papers, stick out from your cover, we are going to be fixing it in a moment. And yeah, so just have fun with the papers. You can get kind of creative, with the fold outs, with the flip outs. And also just don't worry too much. It does not have to be perfect. It does not have to be perfectly even. Even when I fold my papers into like halves, they are not always perfectly even, and I really don't mind it too much, at least. Or I'm trying to fight my perfectionism, and I also like the shabby look of some uneven papers in a handmade journal. So now that we have all our papers folded, I'm going to be making a signature out of them. And for my very first page of a signature, I always like to have something with an impact, because I don't know about you guys, but I love, in every junk journal flip through that I watch, my very favorite moment is when the creator opens up the cover and I get to see the very first page of the journal. I don't know, it's just so exciting, and that's why I always try to make an impactful first page. So in this case, I chose a beautiful flower illustration from a book page, and then I'm just mixing and matching my papers. And what I'm trying to do here is mix different sizes, colors, textures, different widths and different heights, and basically to add as much interest to this journal as I can without, adding any embellishments yet. And so now when I have my signature all ready, I'm just checking if any papers are sticking out, if maybe I have to trim something. And this is the moment where, you get to do any final cuts, any final trims. So like I said, don't worry too much when you are cutting your papers, because you can always go back to it like I'm doing here, and just correct anything. So I have one more paper right here sticking out too much. And also remember, like I said, my papers are theoretically 11 centimeters wide, but the more papers you have in your signatures, the sort of the narrower they should get. Because obviously if they all are 11 centimeters, then they are not going to fit in the cover. So here is a quick flip through of how this signature looks at the moment, and you can see what I was talking about, just mixing different sizes, different types of papers, different textures and colors, and making the journal as interesting as possible without adding any embellishments yet. So when we add the embellishments, it's like the beautiful finishing touch to a solid base that you have with your interesting signature. Okay, and now I'm going to quickly show you the other journal that I did off camera. So like I said, the impactful first page is what I love to do. So I chose these beautiful blue flowers that kind of match the inner cover of this blue journal, and just for me it gives this wow effect when I open the cover, when I'm doing a flip through. So that's what I like to do in all of my journals. And the next thing that we are going to do in this episode is I'm going to show you some basic embellishments and some things that I usually do to embellish my pages, and some things that I usually use, like washi tapes, like stencils and stamps. These are the things that I use to add more texture to my pages, to add even more interest. I'm obviously using inks, and in this case I'm going to be using the vintage photo, but of course you can use colorful inks if you prefer. Then because these are flower journals, I'm also going to use flower book pages, and I love fussy cutting those flowers and just using them for little collages. Of course, paper scraps, and these particular paper scraps are great because they are scraps from the papers I used to create my signatures. So I'm sure that they will match my my signature papers. And then I have some die cuts, so things that I die cut with my die cutting machine, or that I just fussy cut from nature books. So what I'm doing is basically I'm going through my signature, and I'm starting with stamps and stencils. So I'm adding texture and I'm adding interest to my pages and to the background sort of. And I will just look for a blank page, and I will just use some background stamp and randomly stamp it. I don't use an acrylic block for this because I don't want it to be too blocky. I want it to be kind of organic and kind of messy. So like you can see here, I'm just randomly stamping all over the page, and then adding some stenciling to add even more texture. And like I said, I'm using this vintage photo because it just matches the vintage vibe of the journal that I have going on here, but of course you can use any other kind of ink and it would look great too. So here you can see a close-up of what I was talking about with the messy stamping, messy background stamping. I think it looks great, and well, I really like this look. So I'm working kind of methodically with embellishing. So whenever I start with stamping and stenciling, I will just go through all of my pages and add stamping and stenciling wherever I want to, and then I will go on to the second sort of way, or the second idea for embellishing my pages. And of course, if you are a type of person that can do, you know, all at the same time, that's great. I'm not like this. I have to have some kind of a structure where when I work, this is how I work the fastest and the most efficient, and especially when I'm doing multiple journals, which I do most of the time, because yeah. And the second type of embellishing, which I love doing and I do very often and I think is so effective and yet so simple, is making small collages on your pages. So I'm going through this flower book page, and this is one of my favorites. I will list all the books that I used in this video with the title and the author in the description box. But this one is one of my favorites. It has gorgeous illustrations, and I just love fussy cutting them and using them to embellish my pages. So I'm just choosing a few images that I like, and all of the flowers I chose are blue because, well, the journal that I'm embellishing at the moment has a lot of blue inside, and the cover is blue as well. And I'm just fussy cutting the flowers. I'm not being too too careful about it. And if you prefer, you can also ink up the edges of these flowers. I did not do it, I think, in the setup, but I often do it as well. So now I'm going through the pages again and choosing a page I want to work on. And here I'm using my scraps and my washi tapes as well. So just choosing a scrap of paper that I think will look nice on the slide green, and I chose the music paper. I'm tearing a piece of it, then I'm gluing down the flower, and I'm going to be adding some washi tape for some added decoration. And you guys, it's that simple, and you will see how cute and how pretty it looks, and how much it actually adds to the page. Yeah, so I think it really looks, Jesus, sorry. I think it looks really nice. So yeah, I'm just going to go through the pages, and for this one I had this remaining piece of Maggie Holmes paper with all those like flower specimens, and I tore one of the flowers, and I'm going to glue it down on the paper, and I'm using some brown paper scrap to make it pop out of the busy music sheet background. And yeah, and it's that simple, just 2 elements, and I think it looks cute, and I think it really adds just something to the page. And yeah. Okay, so going through the pages again and doing the same thing. I'm also going to be adding some washi tape clusters. This is also a great way to just add a very, very simple and very quick yet effective embellishment to your pages. So washi tape clusters, just choosing a few matching washi tapes that match your theme and are kind of working good together, and just tearing a piece of each and sticking them to your pages. So here, another simple collage, 2 pieces of scrap paper and a flower, and it looks so pretty. Okay, and now for the washi tape cluster. So like I said, just choosing a few washi tapes. One of them is this neutral text sort of washi, and then just a couple of pieces of colorful washi that I felt matched the color, the general vibe of this journal. And yeah, that's simple and pretty. Okay, and for this next collage, you will see that I'm choosing a scrap of paper that is the same paper as I have here on the left side. And this is a great way to kind of make your journal and make your pages work together. So I have this green paper on the left side, and by adding it on the right side as a part of my collage, I'm kind of tying them together, and and you feel like you just flow through the journal and it all just works together perfectly. So that's also a great way, just using the same papers. And this is also why I'm using the scraps of papers that I actually used in this very journal. So yeah, so here I am going to show you the second journal, and I hope you guys found this useful and I hope you enjoyed it. In the next episode of the series, we are going to be making some more embellishments and some more ephemera for a journal to fill it in. But for now, I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope this process was not too hard to follow. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions or any suggestions, or just please let me know if you like this video. It would mean a lot to me. And also I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. I have a lot more to come, and soon. So have a great day, guys, and yeah, I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!